He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to the show, everyone. This will be the second, I would say, personal show in a row for me here on the Alex Marlow Show. It's something that one of my colleagues said to me this morning was really profound. He said, we're not supposed to be the story. I thought about this because I, of course, came of age in the news business, being Andrew Breitbart's right-hand guy, his first employee at Breitbart News. And those of you who are familiar with Andrew's career, you knew that Andrew had a knack for getting in the middle of all the stories that he was covering. He didn't just cover the Anthony Weiner story. He eventually took over Anthony Weiner's press conference and got apologies from people, challenged the media to find lies that he told, etc. And that was sort of how it was for a while, but it's been so long. It's been many years since I felt like I was just covering ourselves. But Breitbart News right now, that's what we're doing. We're in the middle of a truly historic event. And we're a business that's based in Brentwood, California. Brentwood is adjacent to Santa Monica. It's also adjacent to a city called the Pacific Palisades, which many of you maybe weren't aware of until the last 24 hours, but you're aware of it now because of these devastating fires that are taking place. There's actually 4 fires currently raging across the Los Angeles area, 5, including one that's relatively contained. And thousands upon thousands of acres are burning. And on the show today, I'll talk to you a little bit about some of what I'm hearing, what I'm experiencing personally, and some of where I think we go from here, who's to blame. There's a lot to get to, but I'll just start with the personal stuff. This are not just buildings. We're at 1,000 structures now that have been damaged, and that's only going to continue. These fires are still raging. We're in an environment where there's winds with gusts of up to 100 miles an hour. That's like a category, I don't know, was it at least 2 hurricane, right? So this is something we haven't seen in a long time. It happens around this time of year in LA where you could see high winds. And we're not prepared to deal with natural disasters. And when I started to read these news stories day or two ago, that we're going to be experiencing these high level of winds, my first thought was we can't handle any sort of natural disasters in this city. We're not prepared for it. Our priorities are all wrong. And I got concerned on a personal level, not just because of that it could be a news item, but because this is where my family and friends live. This is where I grew up. The areas that are burning are areas that are important to me and people that I love. The homes of 2 of my colleagues at Breitbart, we believe are burned down to the ground. Valuable pieces of real estate, places where people live, they have all of their various things that they've accumulated throughout their lives, where you lay your head at night, your comfort place. It's gone. It's all gone. And these are people who I know and love. My mom went to a high school called Palisades High. She graduated a while ago. I won't say exactly when, because I know she listens to the show sometimes. And it's gone, as far as we can tell. Iconic pieces of Americana, the aspirational lifestyle, the American dream has been fulfilled on this coastline, the stretch of coastline, the Pacific Palisades, more times than you can count. And it's completely up in smoke. As we talked about yesterday on the show, the acts of God are a big deal, maybe the thing that affects our lives the most, with maybe a close second being politics. And unfortunately, in this case, it is a combination of both. Bad politics help us get into this situation. And not because we ignored climate change, which will be some of the talk on Blue Sky today, you can bet. But in fact, if we did ignore climate change, the people who did it are the one-party state and one-party city that runs the city of Los Angeles. But more of what we know about these blazes, we don't know where they began. There's a lot of opportunity for fires to begin in the Los Angeles area. It's a desert. We don't talk about it like it's a desert. There's almost no fire awareness or preparedness that's part of the culture out here. People try to get fire insurance if you've got a home, but there's not really a lot of discussion of what to do to make sure that you're not starting fires and what to do if you see one that started, how to get it under control. It's just not something we talk about. We talk about everything else but this. Because why? I don't know. Maybe there's not enough money in it. Maybe there's not enough votes in it or something. Solving actual problems, helping keep people safe. So because of the nature that it's a desert and because of the nature that we have single-party state governance, where there's no real sense of competition, there's no real incentive for people to solve actual problems, you just got to pander for votes, then a lot of steps were not taken to try to put it so that if a fire breaks out, that we keep it somewhat under control. It's just not done. We just haven't done any of that to this point. So when I had heard that there was going to be these level of winds, I was personally afraid that something was going to happen. I had no idea it was going to be the horrific scenes that we're seeing now. But we're seeing thousands of acres burn up in the Pacific Palisades, which is near the coast. We're seeing a huge fire. They're called the Eaton fires in Pasadena area, which is at the base of the Angeles National Forest, which is, if the fire gets there, which it probably won't due to the wind direction, but if it did, that could be the sort of thing where we could have real historic levels fires. There's a fire in the middle of town, the 405, the 101 freeway. I think they were calling it the Woodley fire, that appears to be under control as of now. Sylmar fire. This is the one that hits close to home. It is circling the hospital that Mrs. Dr. Marlow did her fellowship. Hundreds of people in that hospital, presumably going to be evacuated, right up against the flames. The wind direction, again, which is crucial, and all of a sudden you become an expert in these things very quickly when you're in this type of a situation, means that maybe the hospital gets spared. I don't know. We'll know soon. But the devastation this is going to cause is incalculable. I was talking to my father, Robert, who is one of our editors of Breitbart News. He edits the front page at night. And he told me when he was a kid in the 60s that he saw that there was a huge set of fires in Bel Air, the Bel Air fires. And he said that in total, about 500 structures were burnt or destroyed. We're already well north of 1,000, and this thing has 0% containment as we're recording the show today. So this is going to be perhaps an every 50 or 100 year type event. I think we're there. And this is quite likely going to end up being the story of the year in 2025. All the good stuff, all the planning that we've done politically, this could still be the one. This could be the biggest thing, the most devastation, the moments where America changes is in moments like these, where people all of a sudden start reappraising what really matters. So before I get to the messy business of trying to unpack what went wrong, what we could do, we got a lot of footage. I think it's important to share some of this. So I'm going to play some of it for those of you who are watching. And if you don't watch the shows on YouTube or Rumble, you do miss out. The show, I know it's going to primarily, I don't know, our Rumble numbers are so big, but I assume the show primarily gets listened to. So I try to always do my best to make sure that we're audio first. But just on a day like today, you're not going to be able to get the full sense of things unless I play with you or play for you some visuals as well. But let me play some of this, what we're seeing here. Okay, this is just a stretch of coastal highway, completely burnt. Everything's on fire. Another Palisades neighborhood. See flames everywhere. Destruction everywhere.
Oh my God.
Huge homes. Oh yeah. Okay. So this is a neighborhood. So this piece of footage.
You want to do it?
This is where a close friend of mine lived in high school. And again, this stuff hits very close to. This is home. This is close to home. This is home for a couple of my colleagues. But this is where I grew up, and that street that I just played was a street where a friend of mine lived in high school. And I spent a lot of time in that street. And both sides of the road completely incinerated.
We have over 2,000 acres.
This is a clip from Los Angeles Fire Department. Let's hear what they got.
Burning at this time, and the fire continues to grow with 0% containment. We have over 500 personnel assigned, and unfortunately, we have 2 reported fatalities to civilians. Unknown cause at this time, and we do have a number of significant injuries. We have over 100 structures destroyed, and the cause of the fire is unknown and under investigation.
So there's a lot of theories about what could have caused the fire, because given the nature of the terrain in LA, the dryness, it was a dry winter, though we did have 2 previous pretty wet winters. So given the nature of it, it could be something as small as a cigarette, or more commonly in LA these days, a joint. It could be it could be fireworks. It could be some minor thing. It could be a barbecue. You never know. It could be that small. Obviously, people are going to go to homeless people because homeless people tend to start these things. Tons of homeless people in LA. And quite often it's a homeless person. But there's any number of reasons that could have caused it. We don't have a lot of fatalities now. That's a good thing. But it's really a bare minimum number. It's really a bare minimum standard. These things don't move that fast where you shouldn't be able to evacuate. But the evacuation chaos, I don't have any footage of this, but you've seen cars piled up. At one point, they had a bulldozer try to clear out cars because people in a panic getting out of their cars. I was watching footage last night of a guy rescuing his cat. There's something about that, which people lose their homes. Of course, that matters the most. We see a guy rescuing his cat. And it's not about the cat. It's about him, how badly he needed that cat. An emotional level, and falling to the ground, clutching his cat. That stuff eats at you. I was looking at the Sylmar neighborhood where I spent a lot of time, used to play a baseball tournament there when I was growing up. And it came back into our lives when Mrs. Dr. Marlow got into her fellowship training. And seeing people walking their horses down the street, because it's an area, even though it's a working class area. It's not even a middle class area. It's a working class area of LA. And a lot of immigrants and first generation people there, but they have horses, a horse community. Which is interesting because you think of horses as, oh, you have an Arabian white horse that's in a stable that you pay for someone to take care of. And then you get to drive an hour and a half out of town to go visit your horse 3 times a year just for rich people. No, it's not like that. This is an area where people have horses. They have very modest plots of land and they keep horses there. And these families get interviewed as they're walking their horses down the block. I don't know why they weren't riding them. That was interesting. And they were saying they let some of their other horses out, thinking their best chance of survival was to let them out and let them fend for themselves and hopefully outrun the flames on their own. And the wild horses just being let out into Sylmar in the city of Los Angeles, center of Los Angeles County. Northern part of the San Fernando Valley. Many of you have heard of that. If you've ever watched a movie, you've seen it. It stuff pulls your heartstrings, I'll tell you. Folks, pay attention because this is as serious as it gets. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are racing to lock in radical policies before Trump takes office on January the 20th. They're not just winding down. They're cementing their control. Biden's already signed Executive Order 14067, and banks are actively testing a government-controlled digital dollar right now. This isn't about modernizing currency. It's about total control. They want to track every dollar you earn, save, and spend. Every single one. And here's the kicker. Once the system's fully implemented, it'll be nearly impossible for Trump to undo it. The radical left and their global elite allies will have permanent grips on your financial life long after they're out of power. Trump's called this a dangerous threat to freedom, and J.D. Vance warns it can mean total government control over your finances. Folks, this is real and it's happening now, but you're not powerless. My friends at Priority Gold have created a wealth preservation guide to help you fight back. It lays out 3 critical steps to shield your savings from this overreach. All you have to do is text FREEDOM to 24999 right now and get your guide. That's FREEDOM to 24999 or visit PriorityGold.com. Don't wait. Text FREEDOM to 24999 today and shield what's yours. I got more footage here I want to share. This is the most unbelievable one, the scariest thing. This is someone who was filming from inside their home. I have no clue why. It was people in I guess their dog. I don't know what was going on here, but this is when you're going to have to see it to believe it. But you can hear some of the fires raging. The 2 men and a dog surrounded by flames. It honestly looks like if you ever went on the Backdraft attraction at Universal Studios. Completely surrounded.
Hi. Just be okay? You're gonna be okay. Hi. You're gonna be okay. Oh. Yeah, don't worry about that, dude.
I don't understand.
Okay.
I don't understand why you wouldn't evacuate. I'll tell you, last night I was following the news. I was up all night, as you can imagine. Got a couple hours of sleep, but no more than that. And I'm thinking about what am I going to do here? Because I knew that once the first fire happened, I knew there's a possibility that this was going to be a pattern. Dominoes going to fall throughout the city. And when I saw the Sylmar fire start growing rapidly and doubling in size in a half an hour from 50 acres to 100 acres, and that's pretty close to where I live. And I live in a part of Los Angeles where fires are possible at any given moment. Any given moment that it's a huge source of stress. And I live on the outskirts of town, literally speaking, not like a country song. I live on the edge of town where you go a couple blocks. For me, it's sort of southwest, and then it's just 20 miles of desert terrain, mountainous desert terrain, and until you get to the next town. So it's one of these things where that fire could get here pretty fast, and there's a lot of ways for it to get to me. So I'm thinking about what we got to do here, because once Sylmar fire popped up and it's expanding, I was thinking, well, are we gonna have to move? I don't know. And I start seeing the evacuation area. The evacuation area currently right now is about 6 miles from where I am. So not bad, not great. So I told Mrs. Dr. Marlow, start putting our valuables in some suitcases and let's get some paperwork out, like make sure that we're not too inconvenienced. And I drove around and I got some cash, put some gas in the car, and I saw the direction the wind was favorable. It was blowing in the other direction. And then you have this thought that, oh, what a relief, that I think I'm going to get spared this time. But then you think also, well, actually, it's blowing the direction, so it's pushing all these fires towards more densely populated areas. That's not very good. All this stuff to consider. And we're basically left alone, basically abandoned. The city government, state government, no one at our back here. More on that momentarily. I want to play one more clip. This is James Woods, the actor and Twitter personality, right-wing guy. Also brilliant. One of the smartest guys in Hollywood. And he's a huge booster of Breitbart stories over the years, so we thank him for that. He showed up on CNN. He had shot footage of his neighborhood, which was on fire in the Palisades. And he had some before and after photos. He said he'd taken a video of the sunset the night before. And then he'd been sharing footage of his house that was, I think he evacuated. And I don't know why people wait till the last second to evacuate. I mean, I was thinking about it. I was telling Mrs. Dr. Marlow, worst case scenario, we're about, I'd say 12 hours out from having to evacuate. And I'm still thinking, put some stuff in some bags. Well, these people wait in the last second. I don't understand it. Please email me, aloha@alexmarlow.com, if you're the type of person who wouldn't leave your home, even if it's about to go up in flames. I don't understand. I really don't. I don't think there's clearly not many people who feel that way because the death toll is so low right now. But I'll tell you on a personal level, I don't get it in the slightest. But he held on pretty long and then he got out. Then he showed up on CNN. This is very emotional. I want to play this little segment here. Let's get a taste of this.
I can't walk. I'm 77 years old, man. I can't walk up these hills. It's like Mount Everest there. It's like, pretty steep. So, it's just you. I posted this on X, but Sarah was on with her 8-year-old niece last night. She came out. I'm sorry. Just, one day you're swimming in the pool and the next day it's all gone. But she came out with her little Yeti piggy bank for us to rebuild our house.
Oh. Oh my gosh, James Woods, we all hope that you will be able to rebuild your house, maybe starting with that little Yeti piggy bank. And we're just glad that you're okay and your wife is okay.
I'm sorry,
You have your
I'm
lives.
usually-
Yeah, no, I mean, this is real and it's raw.
I thought I
and
would
you,
be stronger than this.
Why is she talking?
you know what? Strength is not measured by whether, you hold in crying or not. Strength is what you are doing now and helping your neighbors and shining a light on the great, amazing work of all those firefighters.
Horrible broadcasting. Is this Pamela Brown? Who's this person? Miss, you gotta look it up. I'd say this is a terrible broadcasting. It's the part of broadcasting. You gotta understand how to use silence. Not to digress too much, but it's the stand down. Let him talk. We got to reach out to Mr. Woods, see if he'll come on, talk to us. Oh, man. See, but that's sort of personal stuff. That's what families are dealing with. I was just talking to Joel Pollack on our Breitbart Confidential show right before the show. His 3-year-old came up and sat in his lap. And they were talking about the firefighters going to put out the fire at their house. And we're praying that Joel's house got spared. But there's no firefighters putting them out. Not at this level. It's too big. It's too widespread. First responders are doing their best, but there's not enough of them. Lots of friends and family in the neighborhoods that have been affected. Very minimal police directing of traffic. Slow to engage. Evacuation notices came in late. Vehicles piling up. What is the role of government? Why do we have a government? What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to enforce diversity quotas? Are they supposed to mandate paperwork? Joel was saying he had to pull his daughter out of school and that there was a line backed up with paperwork just to try to get the kids to leave school. And why do you have so much paperwork? I think it's designed to disincentivize parents for taking their kids out of school because the schools lose some money from the government if there's a attrition level or an absentee level. So they got to keep that attendance up so they can get enough government funds. So they're harassing parents with paperwork when there's a historic natural disaster taking place all around them and they're about to lose all their stuff and their homes. I had a similar experience. Just this week, I signed up the boys for a camp. And it's a week-long camp at a dojo, which is frequented by geriatrics. And I got these packets of paperwork, there's mountains of it to fill out. So they could do a week of camp. It's the whole point of camp is they go play. And I eventually had to shut it down. And I said, what is the least amount of stuff I can sign? And the lady at the desk said, I know it's a lot, but do you want to take it home? And I said, no, I do not. I do not want to take it home. I will give you my money. I don't want to, but I will. And then go let the kids play. I'm going to sign a bunch of stuff. We've got to clean some of this stuff up over time. Lawyers are focused on the wrong things. I couldn't help but think about how the over-attention to people who are fire hazards. I've got a famous story. I've told it on the air, but not for a long time, where I was on a date with Mrs. Dr. Marlow when we were at Berkeley, and we were in an empty movie theater. We used to go to a lot of movies, so it could have been a weeknight. I mean, it was an empty theater, and we were in the lobby, huge lobby, no one there, and I sat on some stairs towards a fire escape. Not one person was in the lobby other than maybe there were 3 people, the massive lobby, completely empty. And I'm sitting on the stairs waiting for Mrs. Dr. Marlow to do something. And I watched an attendant walk all the way across this vast ballroom-like lobby and walk up to me and tell me that I was blocking the fire escape. And I looked at them and I said to them, well, if there's a fire, what do you think I'm going to do? Do you think I'm just going to sit here and block and tackle people who are trying to escape? Because I'm flammable. So I'll probably just get up and leave myself. And maybe there's something you can do with your time that's better than harassing a paying customer. Like nothing. Like sitting there at the desk, scooping popcorn, whatever you're going to do. I'm not a threat to anyone sitting on these stairs. And yet the lawyers got us coached up that I was a threat. How many fire lanes in your life that you can't pull to a curb without being paranoid of getting a ticket because of some sort of a fire could break out at any given moment? And then the fire breaks out. Where were we? We didn't do anything right. We weren't prepared in the slightest. This stuff, you can prepare for these stuff. It's called forestry management. You clear out brush. You create fire breaks. We don't even talk about this in the city, despite the fact that we're in a desert and everything around us is flammable. What the city has done and the government's done in the state is they've capped fire insurance to try to come up with a program so that it's affordable for homeowners. Fire insurance is very expensive because of the amount of fires that we have. So, but what does that do? It means a lot of insurers have gotten out of the fire insurance game. For the next several weeks, if not months, if not years, we're going to be hearing sob stories, legit sob stories of people who lost their homes in this fire and they had no insurance. And they had no insurance because it's very limited the number of companies who will give you the insurance because of the fire dangers. I remember going through this when I got my house. There was only a couple companies. I think there were two. I think one of them was sort of a quasi-government thing for me to get fire insurance. So now I'm thinking, what's going to happen now? They'll probably drop my insurance. And then I'll have to decide whether or not I want to keep my family in a house with no fire insurance. I probably don't. So that means I'll probably have to move. And it doesn't happen overnight. But those are the dominoes that are likely going to take place now because the insurance companies are about to get crushed right now. And they'll probably be portrayed as the victims because a lot of them denied fire insurance to certain people because the price on it is capped because that's what the government thought was a good thing to do, a welfare program. But the welfare program actually made it so that those insurance companies got out of the fire insurance business because there was nothing in it for them. That's what the government thinks is helpful. What's actually helpful is just clearing out more brush, better forestry management, educating people on the dangers of fire risks. But that's not how our government thinks. They think in terms of whatever woke progressive value that they could advance. Gavin Newsom, the governor, completely uninspiring in all this. I got a clip of him. Let's hear what he had to say.
One other thing I want to say, because you can't say it enough, is expression of gratitude. The President of the United States happens to be in town. It didn't take more than a text message to get the FMAG approved, which means we're getting reimbursed for the vast majority of these costs. No politics, no hand-wringing, no kissing of the feet. The President of the United States said, yes, what else do you need? Emergency proclamations being drafted as we speak. And I just want to thank the president because that's something I don't take for granted and something we should not take for granted at this moment in American history. So thank you, President Biden, as well.
50 years Joe Biden's been in charge. And do you think he ever thought that, hey, maybe LA is a powder keg ready to explode? That something like this could happen at any moment, and we're lucky it hadn't happened yet. It was just dumb luck. The most unbelievable story of all of this to this point is that the mayor of Los Angeles, a woman named Karen Bass, she is in Africa. She went to attend the inauguration of the president of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, which I believe, and feel free to send me a correction, I'll read on the air if I'm wrong. It wasn't yesterday. It was a couple of days ago, and she's hanging out. What does the mayor of Los Angeles have to do with Ghana? How many Los Angelinos who lost their homes and will lose their homes, because remember, we have 0% containment right now, how many of them even know what continent Ghana is on? I bet you it's single digits. That's my guess. And that's where she's spending her time, literally phoning it in. In Newsom's press conference, he actually thanks her. She hasn't done anything. Never did anything. There's an irony in that Rick Caruso, who she narrowly beat a former Republican who pretends like he's a Democrat, even though he says some stupid stuff about Trump and abortion, who nearly became the mayor of LA. He's got these iconic malls across the city. One of them's in the Palisades. The early reports are the mall survived. So a guy who builds stuff, who knows these things. So if that is true, that is an unbelievable image. If the whole area gets incinerated, aside from this guy's luxury mall. And he wanted to be the mayor. We had that opportunity and we passed on it for a literal communist, Karen Bass. One of the most radical people in American politics, but she sounds like everyone's fifth grade teacher, so it's comforting. Type of person to be in Ghana when there's a natural disaster coming. She should have a resignation submitted by the time she lands in the United States. And any journalist who has an opportunity to question a Democrat should ask them, should Mayor Bass resign? She wasn't even here for us. Losing all of our homes. You almost can't believe it. You almost can't believe the level of incompetence that we've seen. The fact that she could be in Ghana. Take it in. And Newsom thanked her. Caruso called in to Fox 11 News, which is the local news. And this was in the middle of the night, and I caught this. It had made the rounds by the morning, so you may have heard this at this point. But let me play this. I got this set aside.
My heart goes out, obviously, to the people with their homes, and I'm watching the small businesses around us go up in flames. This is people's livelihoods, so it's devastating. But what is most concerning to me is our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this. There's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do.
Everyone should resign. Whole city council, governor should resign. Why is this? Why aren't we prepared? What is the job of city governance, of state governance? What is more important than preparing the city and the state for natural disasters? Is it to have a bunch of paperwork to harass parents? Is it to paint a bunch of red lines on a curb so you can't park there? Is that the role? If these people cared so much about climate change like Karen Bass does, then the best thing she could have done is said, hey, climate change is here. We got to make sure we're prepared when a fire breaks out. She didn't do any of that because we all know it's baloney. It's designed to raise money and to get votes. I don't believe climate change is going to take us all out, or they would have done something. There's dry vegetation everywhere in the city. It's fuel. Exasperating. So many iconic things. The Real Inn, which is a fish restaurant that I just had a meeting there with some of my Breitbart colleagues, that's gone. The Getty Villa, maybe that's gone as well, which is one of the most valuable pieces of real estate. It's a museum, one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in the entire world. We don't know. It's so recessed that you can't get footage of it. We'll see when they can get the drones back up in the sky, see what's going on. California rules cause insurance companies to cancel policies before the wildfires. Be on the lookout for that story. Going to be nonstop. Karen Bass cut the fire budget by $20 million. I love cutting budgets, but what is the point of a government if you can't deal with natural disasters? The first responders were not equipped for this. A lot of them are heroes on an individual level, but there was just no readiness at all. Clear. Let's hear more from Caruso.
And it looks like we're in a third world country here. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of tough questions that we need to ask the mayor and the city council and our representatives and the county representatives. Why didn't you work to mitigate this? What was your brush mitigation program? I heard you earlier talking about it's been dry because there hasn't been rain. That's not the biggest problem here. The brush up in these hills that are controlled by the city and the county, I would bet you that if they haven't been handled, mitigated, pruned, removed for probably 30 or 40 years. This was a disaster waiting to happen. And what's predictable is preventable. And who's paying the price are all of these people in their homes and their businesses tonight. Now, we'll rebuild.
And it goes beyond that. It's going to be the commerce. It's going to be the vibes. This is going to be a scar. This is not one that there'll be a lot of rebuilding. It'll be a great place to rebuild. There'll be a lot of camaraderie. All that stuff will happen, just like after the Lahaina fire in Hawaii last year. But this is going to do some real damage, and hopefully we can use this to make some positive change. Amazing the opportunity that's missed. The city has had some chances to get back on track. The reservoir just north of the Pacific Palisades was empty. I don't know why it was empty. And I don't know if it was going to be enough water to be able to deal with the fire in general. It's just so widespread. It spread so fast. I will say, to be fair, for the sake of fairness, I don't necessarily believe that some super competent governance would have been able to stop this. The humans are not all powerful. That's why we call them acts of God. But clearly there weren't basic efforts that were taken on. Clearing out that brush, making sure there's first responders are prepared, making sure the citizens know what to do in an emergency. Because why? The priorities were that we're having a fire department that prioritizes diversity and wokeism over trying to actually help people survive fires. January 20th is the day, and Washington, D.C. is the place. That's when and where Donald Trump will be inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. He gets a whole new inauguration. It was already 45th. Now it'll be 47. And we want to send you there. You can win a once-in-a-lifetime VIP experience to attend the inauguration in Washington, D.C. It includes airfare for you and a guest to Washington, a 3-night stay in our nation's capital, tickets for the presidential inauguration, and much more. Don't miss this historic opportunity to celebrate the greatness, the history, the excitement of a presidential inauguration. To enter, you see the link in the show notes for this episode, or go to SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump. Guys, I've said this, that this is the marquee event on anyone's social calendar for the year, really for the decade for most people. And you get a chance to go. I don't see why you wouldn't give it a shot. Salem Podcast Network/Trump. All you got to do, and you'll get your name on the list. And let's see if you can win. I hope you do. Okay, I'm going to play you a clip that's going to blow your mind. This is the Los Angeles Fire Department chief. This is from NBC News. Pay attention to a couple things. Pay attention to the content, and also pay attention to the way NBC News treats this absurdity.
I'm super inspired.
She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? I say, I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Out of 3,300 city firefighters, only 115 are women right now. She's already looking at ways to change that. She's quick to point out that doing so has a greater purpose, attracting the best and brightest for the job.
They feel
So that's how you attract the best and brightest. You have diversity quotas. The absurdity. Who could say this? I wonder who that reporter is doing the voiceover. How could you say something so illogical? Diversity is contra to having the best and brightest. You could either prioritize diversity or having the best and brightest. You cannot prioritize both. Look, diversity has its place. My favorite food is a steak. I don't want a steak every night. I also would like to have sushi. I also would like to have Indian food. I don't like Indian food or sushi as much as I like steak, but I like diversity. So it's okay to want diversity, but just know that if I endeavor to have the best thing I could eat every night, and that's it, and that was the only thing I cared about, is it best, you would get steak. That's it. So why do we act as though, well, we want to have the best police force, but we got to make sure there's a bunch of Qs and a bunch of IA pluses and a bunch of four spirits. You can't have it both ways. It's one or the other. Do we not just think at all? We've done thinking. We retired from thinking. Let's play some more.
They feel included, they feel valued, and they feel part of a cohesive team.
The chief also checks another box when it comes to inclusivity and diversity at this department. She's a proud member of the LGBTQ community.
Okay, hold on. So I got this guy's name. I didn't want to interrupt him. Gordon Takumatsu. What a joke. Gordon Takumatsu. He's a fool who cannot think. But he hits the gym a lot. He's got a tight shirt and he's got some big muscles. So congrats, you got on TV, Gordon. All right, let's play the rest.
TQ community.
That just kind of opens the door of people that thought, wow, I didn't even know that that was an opportunity for me.
Do you care when your house is on fire if the person putting out the fire is a black four-spirit lesbian or is a strapping white guy who is from Alabama? Does it make a difference to you? It doesn't make a difference to me. Whoever's better. If the black four-spirit lesbian is better at putting out the fire than the buff guy who played football in the SEC, fine. I just want the best. These are complete non sequiturs that the woke crowd is. That's why Musk calls it the woke mind virus. It's a virus to have this sort of thinking. This is why I say feelings don't care about your facts. That's how most people live. They don't care about facts. They care about feelings. It feels good to hire a diverse force. Have a department filled with diversity. Does not make it superior. One of my broadcasting heroes is Adam Carolla, who's best known as a comedian podcaster. And those of you who listen to Prager have heard him a number of times. And he would tell the story repeatedly how he applied for a job at the LA Fire Department and didn't get an interview for 7 years. He's a 6'2" guy who played football, but he was white. And he didn't have any strings to pull. And he said that people were minorities and even women were prioritized over him. Now, I'm not some absolutist. You can't have a women firefighter. I'm not saying that. The physical bravery, there's more to it. There's more to physical bravery than physical strength. So I'm not saying absolutely you can never have a woman firefighter. I am saying on balance, on average, you would bet that men are generally going to be more qualified. Just by nature of the biological traits that we're not allowed to talk about. But he can't even get a call back because he got the wrong skin tone and the wrong gender or sex. And it was a bit, it was a comedy bit. And then now, how haunting is that today to think about that? That was 35 years ago, 40 years ago, maybe. So we're 40 years into wokeifying the LA Fire Department instead of trying to select the most excellent people who are available to stop the fires. To run in and save the cats and the children and the horses. Aloha at alexmarlow.com. If you have any thoughts on anything I've shared. Heavy stuff. Gavin Newsom thanking the mayor who's away in Africa. Cutting the fire budget, adding the LGBTQs. Every home on iconic blocks burned to the ground. Now, I always tell my team, I think I said this on yesterday's show as well, because we had to spend so much time on the incredible Facebook story developments over there. I really highly recommend yesterday's show. I know it's going to get overwhelmed in a lot of the scheme, the news cycle, but I walk through a decade of censorship from the masters of the universe and the hope that Zuck 2.0 has given us, that we got to trust but verify. Absolutely got to verify. Highly recommend yesterday's show. There is so much else to cover in the news, but I'm tempted just to hang on and do some more tomorrow. I've got some beautiful emails set aside from all of you as well. So keep sending in thoughts on the show, feedback, hit the subscribe button. We're getting the show. But all of you in the LA area, if you're listening, be safe. If you've got loved ones in the vicinity, reach out to them. I can't tell you how many people reach out to me in my personal life and how much it means to me and how a little weird it is for people who haven't reached out that I thought might. It's true. You get those thoughts. You get those thoughts when you're trying to figure out what you would really take with you in these moments. There's a lot to this stuff. Kristen Crowley, Los Angeles fire chief, in a wave of anger because prioritizing being an L or a G or a T or a B instead of being prepared to deal with actual fires. A lot of other stuff going on. I will put a pin in it, and we will do more news tomorrow. Part of the nice part about having be the Alex Marlow Show. I don't feel like I got to say everything because there'll be an Alex Marlow Show tomorrow. But there's a lot more updates going on with Trump's cases, with the Facebook censorship and people's reaction to it, the Republicans' effort to try to close up the border. We got some AI scandals going on. So there's a lot going on in the news. You got to go to Breitbart.com if you want more of a diversity of coverage. But our prayers to my friend John Kahn and Joel Pollack and their families, likely lost their homes. And all of you stay safe out there. This is an ongoing situation. This is ongoing. This is not 0% containment. That was a pretty recent report that I played earlier in the show. Elections have consequences for all of us. Time to think about what matters. That's today's show. Thanks to our producer, Misty. Thanks to everyone who supports me and tells 10,000 friends and family members about the new broadcast. I'll talk to you tomorrow.